Hey party people, hope you guys are doing awesome. How was your Christmas? Hope it was awesome. Hope you got everything you wanted. Actually, more importantly than that, I hope you got other people what they needed. So I wanted to continue today's series of choosing the perfect everyday carry setup for you so it'd be seamless. If you haven't seen part 1, I will put a link at the end of this video so you can watch it after this video. You don't have to watch these in order, but the first one was how to make your gun better for concealed carry so that it fits you and your hand better. And today I wanted to talk about choosing the perfect holster setup as well as belt so that you can conceal carry with as minimal mental effort as you need to and to maximize the comfortability of it. So if you're new to the channel, I started carrying back in October of 2015. I remember, I don't know why. And I've carried pretty much every single day since then with just a few exceptions whenever I would travel somewhere. But when I first got into concealed carry, I did just like everyone else and I went to YouTube to look at videos about, holsters and, things like that. And back then, and this is only like 6 years ago, most of the YouTubers that I saw at the time were talking about how you had to dress around the gun, meaning you had to sacrifice the way you dressed in order to conceal it properly and be comfortable at the same time. And for me, that just never sat well with me because I live in a hot state and dressing around the gun is rarely an option. Even right now, it's beautiful outside. It's like in the 60s, maybe the high 50s. You're not really gonna wear a big jacket or anything to dress around the gun. So my goal with concealed carry has always been, I want one everyday carry setup that I can wear year round, despite what type of clothing I'm wearing, whether I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, dress clothes, or bundled up for the winter with minimal adjustments. I mean, sometimes when you do go around changing different clothes and stuff, you might have to make minimal adjustments to your setup, but overall, I don't want to make it this huge production of, oh, I gotta go get this clip off this holster, I gotta wear this belt with this. I just want one system that I can put on every day. And what that does is it allows me to free up mental RAM. We all have a ton of things to think about. We got stresses with families. We have bills we gotta pay. We have our jobs. And the last thing I want to think about is how am I going to carry my gun today? And when you free up mental RAM, you're able to react to your environment much better. And having a setup like that allows me to maintain the same training type regiment from everything of where I'm drawing the gun from, how I draw, and press out, how I do reloads, how I reholster. And because if I'm changing my carry setup based on the time of year, I don't really have time to go out to the range and be proficient in all these different methods. That's just me. Maybe you're different, but I just don't have time to be proficient at all of it. So I'd rather have one thing that I can do every single year. And that's gonna be different for every single one of you. There's not gonna be one right answer. I want you guys to understand that today. There's gonna be a lot of variables involved in choosing your holster and your belt. And we're gonna get into all those variables. I think what you'll take away from today's video is by the time you're done watching this, especially if you're new to guns, you're gonna have a better understanding of what to look for in a holster, what to look for in your belt, also what to look for in your gun. Now, I've already covered how to choose your first handgun, and I'll link that video right up here if you want to watch that later. But your holster selection is dependent on a bunch of different factors. Number 1, your body type. Number 2, the brand of your gun. Yeah, the brand. Number 3, the size of your gun. Number 4, your clothing style. Number 5, your job. And then number 6, what kind of car do you drive? I mean, there's other things as well, but all those things factor into what's going to be the best style holster for the most comfortability that will also be able to be used year round in your situation. And we're going to get into a lot of different things later on, like what's best for like a first time gun owner. If you don't know what you don't know, we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about what if your gun has modifications on it, like lights, lasers, red dots, suppressor height sights, threaded barrels, compensators. We're gonna get into that as well. And to keep things simple, we're only gonna cover 3 styles of holsters: Appendix IWB, strong side IWB, and strong side OWB, outside the waistband. The reason I wanted to limit it to those is there's a ton of different holsters, especially if you're a girl. If you're a female, your body proportions are much different than a man. Your hips are wider than your shoulders, and it's very much more difficult for a female to conceal a gun as easily as a man. Because our shoulders jet out further than our hips, the way that our shirt falls really allows us to conceal things in our waistband much easier. But another thing to keep in mind is between Appendix, strong side IWB, or strong side OWB, they all have pros and cons. And you just have to make up your mind on what's really best for me, my style, my body type, and my situation. And then unfortunately, Sometimes you're gonna have to test 2 or 3 different holsters before you find one that fits you perfectly. That's just an unfortunate fact of it. You're gonna have to spend money on 2 or 3 different kinds. But my goal with the video is to reduce that so maybe you can hopefully find the right one the first time. Can't guarantee it, but it'd be awesome. Before we get into the different style holsters, I wanted to cover a couple of things that are very basic. What should you look for in a holster? Most important thing that you should probably look for is, does the holster protect this trigger? A lot of your defensive handguns don't have a manual safety. And so your trigger, if you carry chambered, is always ready to go. There's a safety on your trigger that prevents the trigger from being pulled, but if anything pushes that little blade down, it's gonna go bang. So your holster becomes your safety. And what I mean by that is this is just a basic holster. I don't even remember who sent this to me, but you can see how it has an outline of the trigger there, goes into place. Nothing can get in there and pull that trigger. Your holster is now your safety. A couple of other things that I look for, and it's all gonna be dependent upon your particular firearm, and it's gonna be dependent upon what kind of things you have on your gun, you know, for lights and red dots and all that stuff. But that's the main thing you wanna make sure when you get a holster is, does the gun seat all the way down? And it's okay if there's a tiny little gap like back here, but you don't want anything, you know, like a pencil or something going into that trigger guard and pulling that trigger back while it's on your person, or if some women like to do purse carry. You definitely want to have a holster that protects the trigger. That's the main thing you need before you even worry about comfort or anything else. So first we'll talk about Appendix, talk about the pros and the cons, and then we're gonna get into some other stuff. This is a new holster I got for my M&P 2.0 compact that we're doing a video series on. We'll have more videos about this coming soon. Now, I'm not here to push a brand, but I will speak of the brands that I've tried because I can't possibly test every holster out there. That's just not feasible. So this is a standard Appendix rig. This goes inside the waistband right here in the front. I'll back up for you. So there you go. Standard Appendix rig. Also have a spare magazine. These things conceal like a dream on my body. This might not work for everybody, but I do have some tips that make these way more comfortable than they typically come set up when you order them. Now, what are the drawbacks to Appendix carry? Well, I can think of 2 right off the top of my head. One of the first cons is we're always taught not to point the gun at anything we're not willing to destroy. And obviously in the Appendix position, you're pointing it at 2 things you don't want to destroy: your giblets and your femoral artery. There are ways to mitigate that, which we're gonna cover here in a bit, that are based on the design of the holster. But those are the only 2 cons that I can really think of. In my opinion, the pros far outweigh the cons. Number 1, I can carry this with my body style with 0 printing. I can carry this wearing shorts and a t-shirt, given that the shorts have a belt on them. The gun is always in front of me, meaning it's always right here. I always have control of how close anyone gets to right here. Whereas back here, it's a little more difficult. And so for my body type, this allows me to walk around concealed. No one's gonna tell. I can draw it, present, and fire. I can reholster, and I still have my spare mag for doing reloads. And what this allows is, because I can conceal this in shorts and a t-shirt, I can wear this year round. And because I can wear it year round, I can maintain the same training regiment of where to draw from, where to grab my spare mag from, and reholstering and things like that. So you build up that muscle memory. Now, all Appendix holsters are not created equally. Here are a couple of Appendix holsters that I don't think are on the same level of comfort or on the same level of concealability as the ones with the magazine carrier that's attached to it. I'm gonna show you why. I should note, I'm not saying that these holsters are bad. All these holsters are great. They do a great job. So number 1, you'll notice that this one doesn't have an attached mag caddy to it. When you go to put this guy on, you're gonna cover it up. Now, you're not gonna print too bad, but I definitely do print a little bit more because one side is bulked out of my pants and the other side is kind of pushed in. And so you kind of have, it's really hard to show you because I don't know if I can get you the right angle, but you can kind of see how this side's pushed out. And you can kind of see, I'm using my hand so you can see how this side's not. And so you kind of end up with this weird shape to you, which I don't think the average person will know, but it's not as comfortable because all the weight is on one side. Whereas something like this distributes the weight equally across both sides. A lot of times when people carry with this style holster, one way that they carry with a spare mag is with a separate magazine carrier. and they just simply stick it kind of right here, and it kind of acts like a appendix rig, but it's just not as good. For example, with this magazine right here, you can kind of see it. It feels like when it's loaded, this one's empty, but when it's loaded, it feels like it wants to fall out that way. And also, when I twist and turn, different parts of the gun are shifting like this, whereas with an appendix rig, it all stays right here, high and tight. But it's definitely a popular option, and a lot of people do prefer it. So those are the Kydex appendix holsters. Most of them are gonna be Kydex. And don't let it fool you, the Kydex is not as uncomfortable as it looks, I promise you. When you look at them, you're like, why would I wear that? That's hard, that's not gonna be comfortable. But a lot of these holsters are designed in a way, because the holster makers have done the research of where dips in your body are. They'll design like the backs of these holsters, for example, to push into certain regions so that it does feel comfortable. It's weird and it's counterintuitive, but it totally works. Now, there are appendix rigs that are similar to this holster, but this isn't an appendix holster. This is a hybrid holster where the outer shell is made of Kydex, and then the backing is made of some kind of soft material. Sometimes they're made of leather. Sometimes they're made out of some type of synthetic breathable material. This one is from a company called Alien Gear. And this came in a kit. It was called the Alien Gear Shapeshift Holster. And if you are a brand new gun owner, like I mean, you've never carried a day in your life, I highly recommend getting this kit, because in the kit, the shell can come off and you can turn it into an appendix holster, or you can turn it into an OWB holster, or you can have it like this where it's strong side IWB. When I first started carrying, I had a Galco King Tuck, and it was just like this one, just a different brand. So when I first got this holster, not this particular one, but the Galco one that I mentioned, it was actually quite comfortable. These work pretty good. You put your gun into here, and then you can either carry them right here on whatever your strong side is, but most people typically push them a little bit towards above their butt cheek a little bit, about the 430 position if you're right-handed, 630 position if you're left-handed. But the cool thing is you have these clips on here and you can adjust where these clips are, and sometimes you want the gun to be like this, sometimes you want the gun to be like this. It's all personal preference. So once it's in, you can see right here, it's just right above the belt line, and you can move this around in different areas to be a little bit more concealable. Now, I would always carry it right here because that seemed to be the best place to grab it and push out. Oh yeah, I got this big brace on. I had a tumor removed. Thankfully it was benign from my back the other day. So if you see that, it's not a bra, it's just a back brace. But anyways, goes in right there. And when you're standing up, for the most part, it's pretty darn concealable, but it does, if you're thin like I am, it does kind of start protruding out a little bit. You can kind of see it right there. So the problem that I had when I would carry this is, number one, it would pull this side of my pants down, no matter how tight my belt was. And I wear a good belt, and like I said, we're gonna cover belts in a little bit. It would always kind of sag this side of my pants. But that wasn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem was I worked at a bar at the time, bartending, and our kegerator was behind the bar, it wasn't in the back. So I would change the kegs out and I'd have to stoop down, and then my shirt would come up. And then when I come back up, every time I stooped a little bit, my shirt would come a little higher, and then my gun's showing. And it was okay for me to carry at work. My boss was really cool with it. The problem I had was a drunk person seeing it and then overreacting and freaking out. You know what I mean? So that's when I started discovering appendix carry. And that's how I kind of got into that. But there's a lot of good brands that make holsters like this. This one, like I said, is Alien Gear. If you're new to it, get the Shapeshifter package and you can test everything. Now, I will say their appendix holster is not a good representation of what appendix holsters feel like. However, it will give you somewhat of an idea if maybe you want to go that route. Now, what are the downsides to this besides the printability of them? I don't think these are best for thin guys. Maybe these are good for bigger guys. Maybe if you have a muffin top, it kind of rolls over the top of the grip of the gun and hides it better. But for thin guys, I don't think that these are the best. But maybe you disagree, and if you do, that's totally okay. But the other cons to these are, what if you have something like this with a big light on it, or a red dot, or a threaded barrel, or like that? There might be a few exceptions to this rule, and if there are, I will make sure to put links to them over at the parts list. But most of these holsters are made for just standard stock OEM guns without threaded barrels. You can't see how the end of it isn't completely open, so when your back's pressed against here, it's not open. Yeah, you could Dremel it out, but it's not open. The other thing too is the tops of these, you could Dremel them, but they're not really there to accept a red dot or a light. And so that can be kind of cumbersome. I do believe Alien Gear do have some light bearing options, but it's very limited on what lights they support. So there's a lot of cons to this for me personally, but a lot of people do love these style holsters. I don't know where I put it because I don't carry OWB a lot, but we're just gonna make up an imaginary holster for OWB. OWB holsters typically thread through your belt right here, unless it's a competition holster. But for carry, they typically thread through right here, and it uses the same style. We'll just use this as an example. You know, you got your retention in the holster right here, and it clicks. For me, I don't like carrying like this. Number one, I rarely wear a jacket that's big enough to really conceal it. But even if I did, there's something about drawing from here and coming up like this and then out that feels really awkward to me. Even more awkward than drawing from here or drawing from right here. It just doesn't feel good to me at all. And you need a lot of clothes to cover it up, like a big flannel or a jacket or something. Then once you have those things in place, there's a whole nother set of methods of clearing the garment, meaning pulling your shirt or your jacket out of the way in order to pull the gun out and present it and fire it. Although it has all those cons, it does have a lot of pros, meaning now you have a lot of flexibility in the type of modifications you can have on your gun, such as red dots, compensators, threaded barrels, or lights. Much more available for an outside the waistband holster than it is for those hybrid style inside the waistband holsters. In my eyes, and this is just my justification for it for me, this holster combines all the accessories that I can have on my gun, like the OWB, but makes it IWB, and it doesn't print like the 430 position IWB. And you see I got all these mods on here, and that's something that I like to have on my gun. So something to understand about a lot of holster companies. Not all of them are gonna create holsters for guns that don't sell very well because it costs a lot of money in molds and tooling of the machines to create a mold for a particular type of gun. But then they have to go create another mold for, say, a Surefire X300 light or a Streamlight or an Enforce light, and all of those cost more money. So something to keep in mind when you're ordering holsters is if you have a gun that isn't really popular or mainstream, I just use that word lightly, because all guns are great. I love most all of them, but there are some that aren't carried as often as, say, like a Glock, a Smith & Wesson, or a Sig Sauer P320, and so on and so forth. So if you have something like an oddball, like a Taurus, I'm just gonna say it's an oddball. It's not a bad gun, it's just an oddball. Fewer manufacturers are gonna have a holster for it. And even fewer than that are gonna have holsters for it so that it can accept a red dot, or so that it can accept a threaded barrel, or it can accept a weapon light. Just keep those things in mind. So the easiest way to do it is to get one of the big three. I call them the big three: Glock, Smith & Wesson, or Sig Sauer. Those holsters are widely available with all the different modifications for the accessories and things like that. That way you can carry it, so keep that in mind. But when it comes to modifications to your gun, I like to have a red dot on most of my guns. This one's the Holosun 407K, fantastic optic. I also like the 507K, I like the 507C, 407C, and I like the Trijicon RMRs. But not all holsters are set up to accept these. And here's what I mean by that. When you put this gun into the holster, sometimes some manufacturers will have this part of it coming up a lot higher and further back, and you might have to grind it with a Dremel to make it work. That's just something to keep in mind. Same thing for the ends of the barrel right here. So this one is a flush. I prefer open-ended holsters. And one of the reasons why is if I choose to get a threaded barrel, it's gonna poke right through. So this one is set up where I can run a compensator on it. And you can see here that the actual Kydex protects the end of this compensator. So that way, once I fire and reholster, if this thing's hot, it's not gonna singe my biscuits, if that makes any sense to you. So it's okay for these comps to stick out the end of the holster like so, but just keep in mind when you reholster, it might burn you. When you're ordering your holster, you wanna think about the future. For example, maybe you have a gun that doesn't have a red dot on it, but it has a weapon light. Well, in the future, what you're gonna wanna think about is, am I ever gonna add a red dot to it? You're either gonna have to modify your holster yourself to make clearance for a red dot, or you're gonna have to order a whole new holster. So this will save you money. So typically the way I like to order holsters is with an open end That way it's future proofing for threaded barrels and compensators, for a red dot, and for the light of my choice. Now, when it comes to weapon lights, I tend to stick with 2-3 different brands max that work for me. This guy right here has been one of my longtime favorites. It's the M-Force APL-C. The main reason I like this light is the way that the paddles work. I like being able to just press it, and it's just beautiful to me. It works great. Downside is they don't make these anymore, and they are coming out with a replacement for them, but they haven't replaced them yet. I do believe the replacements will have the same dimensions, so all my old holsters should work with this, but you can't buy these new anymore. And for concealed carry, I really prefer holsters that are flush to the end of the gun. Not everyone thinks like that, but that's how I feel. And so because those aren't available anymore, I picked up this guy, the Streamlight TLR-7A. This comes in 2 flavors. I'll show you a photo to explain the difference. There's the high switch and the low switch. Basically, the difference is for the high switch, you don't have to reach as far down to actuate this, whereas the low switch, you have to reach down a little bit further. But it's really good. I had the original TLR-7 back in 2018, and it's the only weapon light that I've ever sold because it didn't have these switches on here. Switches are more important than the brightness of it. I mean, obviously I don't want to dim weapon light, but if I can't actuate it with one hand, then I don't think it's any good because I know we're supposed to actuate this with our support hand. But what if you're in a situation where you don't have the use of your support hand and you need a light? I need to be able to do it super easily like that. And the Streamlight TLR-7A, as well as the M-Force APLs, are perfect for one-handed manipulations. So let's talk about making it comfortable. Well, one thing that's gonna depend on your comfortability is gonna be your carry position, kind of like I talked about earlier. And that's why I say if you're new to guns, go ahead and get the Alien Gear Shapeshift holster. And that way you can test the different positions just to see what feels more comfortable. And like I mentioned, their Appendix holster is not the ideal. It doesn't give you a really good experience of what Appendix is like, but it will give you a sense. And the other downside to Alien Gear is I don't believe they have anything for modifications, such as red dots and threaded barrels. But I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've looked at them. So that's all gonna be dependent on your body type, the type of holster you get. Like for example, I've shown you this one. This one's from Tier 1 Concealed. This one is the Axis Elite. This one's made for my MMP 2.0, but like I mentioned earlier, you got this little ridge here that pushes out on your belt, pushing the gun closer to you. You got a really thick concealment wing here that's made in different like pancake sections. So if it's pushing out too much, you can remove some of these sections. And then I call it a FUPA, but they got this concealment wedge. It sticks on the back. You can choose to get this with your holster. I got the medium sized. There's all kinds of different sizes, and I put one right there, and it makes this thing conceal like a dream. But just in case you're wondering, it's the medium size, and it's a 1-inch wedge, just in case you decide to get a holster like this one. Another thing that really makes the biggest difference on not only concealability, but comfort is your clips. Let me show you an example. So earlier I showed you this holster. This is a Glock 19 holster. It has a concealment wing. It has one clip. When I put this holster on, it feels semi-secure, but it flops around like this because it's got one clip. Now, you may think that's a pro, but for me, I want my grip of my gun to be in the same position no matter what I'm doing, because when I practice my draw strokes, my gun's always in the same position and then I press out. So the problem I've had with single clips is it annoys me when they flop, and then I don't want to go and reach for it and my grip be in the wrong position. And then when I draw the gun, I got it like this, say for example. I don't prefer single clipped holsters. Whereas for example, with this one is from a company called LAS Concealment. They also make phenomenal holsters. This one is going to go in right here, and it's always in the same position. It doesn't matter if I'm on my side, it's always in the same position, and then I can always press out and shoot and have that muscle memory that I talked about earlier. The other thing that makes a holster comfortable is the flexibility. So with these, they have this bungee cord in here, and it moves with your body. And I can sit down, I can drive. I've driven 5 hours before wearing these. Usually I just forget that it's there, but I guess it all depends on your body type. If I do think about it, I will remove it and put it beside me in the car or put it in the door or something like that. But for the most part, this is what I wear. I can sit down in it and I have no problems with it. I'm gonna sit up a little bit high of your belt line. This was the case when I got my first one. And I felt like the gun was gonna fall out like that, and it kind of printed. It kind of hit my stomach and kind of came out like this. Remember earlier I was talking about that concealment wedge and how it pushes the holster to do like this. That's how I want it. It's aimed away from me and I can draw it. But if you ever feel like it's gonna fall out like this, all you gotta do is take these clips, loosen these screws, and just move it up one notch, and that'll make the holster sit lower. I got a good friend who has a little bit of a tactical belly, and he doesn't carry with these appendix rigs. He put that on after I adjusted these clips, and he couldn't believe how comfortable this was, despite having a tactical muffin top. Now, I did want to mention one other thing when it comes to clips, and I'm gonna have to show this to you up close. The way that this Neo Mag alias works, just a heads up, they didn't sponsor the video. They sent these to me to play with them, but I don't make any money if you buy them or anything, and I don't have a promo code for them. You know, fair warning. But essentially, what you do, let me zoom you in. You replace the clips that are on your holster. And then these things go through your belt like this, right? And then on one side of them is a slot. And on the top side of on the bottom side of here is a clip, and it pops in and it stays. And then on the front, you don't have that clip that goes across. And then to get it off, you push this switch here. See that switch? I'll show you a better view of the switch here. You push this to the side like that, and then that releases it. And then that allows it to come off just like this. And now you can get the holster off, but it does have a few cons that we need to talk about. So with this Neo Mag alias, this isn't gonna work for all holsters. For example, if you're using anything with a double clip that's this far apart, like an appendix rig, and it doesn't flex right here, this may or may not work for you, because these have to be in a perfect alignment with the ones that are on your belt in order to click into place. And if it doesn't flex, it might not click. But when you put it on, I will say this, it definitely 100% eliminates the appearance of the clips that are on the front, which definitely solves the problem that they're talking about. But it's not as seamless as I would like. Let me show you what I mean. So you can see there when I was putting it in, it was a little bit cumbersome, but it does conceal very well. And then right up here in the front, you don't see any clips. Everything else remains the same. The gun stays where I have it, which is a good thing. The only downside to it is putting it on and taking it off. You have to push these, there's two little levers on the bottom that I showed you up close, and then it comes out. And it gets easier with practice, I will say that. But even with all that said, it's still not as quick and seamless as using these standard clips that are right here. It's just in, it's on, want it off, pop the clips, pull it out. So I don't know if I would really benefit from these Neo Mag aliases, because one, I don't really care if people see the clips. I do live in a gun-friendly state, but maybe you're not in a gun-friendly state. Maybe you're somewhere like California, you just happen to have a concealed permit somehow. Then maybe those are beneficial for you. I don't think they're a bad product. I just don't think they fit me very well, but I'm sure they will fit other people very well. Now, just as important as a holster, the next thing that you're gonna need to consider is the belt, because your belt is what's gonna hold the entire weight of the holster system on your body. And you don't want it to sag, and you don't want it to get all squiggly on you. You're definitely gonna need a good rigid belt. Now, everybody has different opinions about this, but some people don't like rigid belts. Kind of give you an example of what I mean by rigid belt is I can hold it like this, it doesn't flop. And the downside to a lot of rigid belts is this upper edge up here. When you go to sit down, they can kind of dig into your side, like right here, just depending on how tight you wear your pants, what your body type's like. But they tend to break in and mold to your body over time, and they take a long time to break down. As an example, this is a 4-year-old blue Alpha Gear belt, and you can see it's still rigid. This was the first type of concealed carry belt that I got, and this was not the exact one, but it was from Blue Alpha Gear. And then they came out with this one. This is the EDC hybrid. And what that means is this side is small enough to slip through your belt loops. The original Cobra buckles weren't. But I like this, it looks cool. I don't tuck my shirts in ever, but a lot of people do. And so these are great belts. I love them to death. It's adjustable in sizing with the Velcro on the side, and you just give them your pant size and you choose your color and you're good to go. Now, if you're someone that likes to tuck your shirt in, you're gonna be a little bit more picky, but I think I have one that a lot of you guys are gonna like that we're gonna talk about in a second. Later, I tried this guy right here. This is from a company called Hank's Belts. I got this one a long time ago, but I rarely wear it because it doesn't work for appendix holsters. And I'll show you more about that in a second as well. Because the Hank's belt didn't work for the type of holster I used, I just continued wearing this one. I have worn the crap out of this, and I got a new one coming because I like them that much. But then Core Essentials, a couple of years ago, contacted me and sent me a couple belts. And they make these where they're nice and good looking if you're gonna wear dress clothes. They all have all kinds of different types of buckles. And you know, they have these, like this one's a leather styled one, but it's reinforced so that you can still conceal carry. But one of the coolest things about these is you don't got to choose your size. On the back of them here, they have these hash marks and you just cut it to your size. You cut it for like 2 or 3 sizes larger if you're carrying inside the waistband. They have the ratcheting system, so you don't got to worry about finding the right hole. I've always been the kind where I wear a belt where it uses the prong and the holes, that I'm always in between sizes. So you can go super tight, super loose, and then it has this little clip here to release so you can pull it back out. Now these belts are awesome. I love these, but I still had a problem. They were very limited on what I could do with my style of holsters. And that's because their buckles are really wide. So the belt comes out on this side and on this side. And as you can see, this doesn't really fit in between these 2 clips. And so I would have to like do this weird shimmy thing, and then the gun had to sit there. And so when it was on my body, so when you're wearing a buckle, right, you want it perfectly centered. But the problem with this was because they're off kilter, I'd have to kick it to the side, and then my gun had to stay right there. I had no adjustability side to side on where my gun could go. Now, I haven't tried it yet, but Core Essentials did come out with a buckle that's more appendix friendly. I don't have it yet, but I didn't think that the buckle was very attractive. So I discovered this company that makes this belt. And I will say, this is probably one of the sexiest belts that I've gotten in a very long time. This is called Next Belts. And I'll have a link for it over at the parts list. And this is like a dark matte gray, tiny, tiny little buckle. And what's cool about that, I could put my appendix rig on here and move it side to side to get the perfect fit. I've seen in the comments on older videos with my Core Essentials belts, people are like, why don't you just move the buckle to the side? And that's because Core Essential belts aren't designed to be moved to the side. They're designed for the buckle to be in the front. That's why they're dressier than a Cobra style buckle. Cobra buckles, you can move those to the side, no problem, but I've never had to. Now, this is almost the same thing as Core Essentials. It has the ratcheting system like this, and you also cut these to size using the hash marks inside. But what is different, and this is very important, is the way that the buckle attaches to the belt itself. You have these 3 screws that all have Loctite pre-applied, and it comes with the tool and you crank those down. That is very secure. And the reason I bring that up is this has only happened maybe twice, is on these Core Essential belts, you can see all these little holes right here. And those holes are from where I put this on like so, and then this thing kind of folds, fold that guy up, and then it clamps into place. And what I found was over time, it starts inching its way off. That one, I mean, I've only been testing it for, a month or so now, but it hasn't moved a millimeter. So that's very important. The other thing that I found that I liked about the Next belt, more so than the Core Essential belts, is the release button. Now this could be a pro or con depending on who you are. So with these belts, there is a little tab right here and you push out like that to release it. The problem is when you got a lot of tension on here, say like that, that button becomes really almost impossible to press. So if you got your belt and your gun pushing against it, it can sometimes be hard to relieve the tension on it. Whereas this one has just a push button on the bottom that comes out like that. It's just, so easy. Even when it's under pressure, it just comes right off. At first, I was a little bit worried that maybe my zipper or something would hit that when I sit down, but it doesn't. And I find that when I sit down, if I want to get a little more length on the belt for more comfortability, I just hit that button and just let it stretch out. And it's just, So these do sell out quick. Not all the Next belts are this attractive, but I will have a link directly to this in case you want to pick one up for yourself. You know, as I mentioned earlier in the video, guys, I can't tell you what's going to work for you, your body type, and your lifestyle. All I can do is give you my experiences with these things and show you what's worked for me. I work from home. I've been working home for the past 5.5 years. I don't have to dress up for anyone. And I live in a gun-friendly state. So I wear jeans and a t-shirt basically every single day. And in the summer, I wear shorts and a t-shirt. And having the Appendix rig with these Cobra style belts, or with these Next belts, or even with the Core Essentials belts, it works perfect for me, but your situation may be different. And also, as I mentioned earlier, my whole goal with this video is not to tell you what's best. It's to show you what the experiences are with the different types of products so you can see what might be best for you in your situation. So let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments section below. Let me know if there's something I didn't cover in today's video. That way I can cover it in a future video. But if you liked today's video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, make sure to hit the dislike button twice. But until next time, guys, I love you, and you guys stay sexy.